Brace yourself. This is a long story. I'm Alex, 44M, and my soon-to-be ex-wife, Lisa, 39F, have been married for 11 years. We don't have kids. 2 years ago, I had a blood test, and the results showed I was at high risk for diabetes, gout, and hypertension. That was my wake-up call. We decided together to adopt a healthier lifestyle. Over time, I dropped from 117 to 85 kilograms, and Lisa went from 83 to 65 kilograms. We both felt amazing, and I was thrilled that I avoided those health conditions. We became gym regulars, going almost every afternoon. Lisa caught the attention of a trainer there. Let's call him Max. Max was a stereotypical fitness coach, muscular and always showing off. As Lisa got in shape, I couldn't help but notice other men checking her out, and honestly, I was proud of her. Lisa has an impressive figure, and her confidence was soaring. But Max was a little too interested. I saw him sneaking glances at women's backsides, and he often flaunted his physique. When Lisa and I became gym regulars, it was clear she enjoyed the attention she got from men, including Max. One day, while we were using the elliptical machines, Max started doing some cable exercises right in front of us, shirtless. I rolled my eyes at Lisa, expecting her to share my amusement, but she was staring at him intently and even licked her lips. I was crushed. I glanced at Max, and he had this smug grin. On the drive home, I made a sarcastic comment about Max showing off, but Lisa acted clueless. Really? I didn't notice, she said. When I pressed her, she claimed she must have been lost in thought. I let it go, but after that, I saw them talking more often at the gym. A few weeks later, Lisa was doing squats on the Smith machine, and Max walked over to help her, grabbing her waist as she worked out. That was it for me. I walked over, told him firmly, "I've got this," and he smirked and backed off with a casual, "No problem, pal." Lisa, however, was irritated with me. "Seriously, Alex?" she snapped. At home, we had a big argument. She accused me of being immature and jealous. I told her Max was clearly trying to hit on her, and she admitted he might be but insisted she'd never cheat on me. I asked why she let him touch her, and she said she didn't want to seem rude. After an hour of back and forth, we agreed to switch gyms. The new gym brought its own problems. Lisa resented me, saying I didn't trust her. Things worsened when I took a new job opportunity that required me to work afternoons, leaving us to exercise at different times. I went in the mornings, and Lisa went in the evenings. Her resentment grew, and she became distant. My messages went unanswered, or she'd reply with short, dismissive texts like, "Okay," or "Same here." I suggested couples therapy, but Lisa said I was the one with trust issues and needed therapy myself. Desperate to save our marriage, I agreed. For the next year, I attended therapy, but Lisa's behavior didn't change. Our intimacy disappeared. She was always too tired or not in the mood. I even started snooping, checking her phone and her car, but found nothing suspicious. Her map history only showed trips between home, work, and the gym. Whenever I tried to talk to her, she brushed me off, saying she was going through a midlife phase and needed time. Things unraveled one day when our condo's security guard, a friendly guy named Mr. K, mentioned something that caught me off guard. He casually said, "Maybe you can recommend your wife's massage therapist. He was here yesterday." Confused, I asked, "What massage therapist?" He showed me footage from the security cameras, and to my shock, it was Max. Apparently, he had been visiting Lisa at our home. I felt sick. I took the next day off and borrowed a friend's car to follow Lisa. That afternoon, she parked at a shopping mall near the gym, where Max was waiting for her. They acted like a couple, laughing, hugging, and even kissing. They walked hand in hand into a nearby residential area. I tried to follow them, recording with my phone, but a security guard stopped me. I asked, "Do you know them?" He smiled and said, "Oh, they seem like newlyweds." I couldn't believe it. I called Lisa repeatedly, but she didn't answer. When I checked her car back at the mall, I realized she had left her phone there to avoid tracking. That night, as I lay in bed beside her, I knew it was over. Little did I know it would be the last time we'd ever sleep under the same roof. I returned the borrowed car, headed home, and called my parents. Thankfully, my dad picked up. Through tears, I told him everything. He comforted me and advised me to gather as much evidence as possible. He also said he'd contact a trusted friend, an excellent divorce lawyer. Shortly after, my wife, Mia, called me back after noticing 2 missed calls. I calmly told her I was already home. She replied, "I'm heading back from the gym. My legs are killing me." No kidding, I thought. When she arrived, she noticed my puffy eyes and asked, "What's wrong? Have you been crying?" Somehow, I managed to keep my composure. I smiled faintly and lied, saying I wasn't feeling well and might have the flu, which is why I'd left work early. I added, "Don't get too close to me. I don't want you to catch it. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight." She seemed unconcerned and agreed. That night, I cried silently and didn't sleep a wink. Around midnight, I heard her giggling, probably texting Max, but I found no evidence of her messaging anyone directly. Then it hit me. What if AP wasn't listed as a man in her phone but disguised as one of her female coworkers? The next morning, while Mia was in the shower, I accessed her phone and created a remote session on my laptop before returning it to its original spot. We both knew each other's phone passwords. This session stayed active as long as the phone was near my laptop or on the same Wi-Fi network. That's when I uncovered it. Under a female name with a dumbbell emoji as the profile picture, I found their chat. Most of the messages had been deleted, but the ones left behind seemed coded. "Can you drop off the documents at my desk? Mia doesn't have a desk at work. Heading to the meeting. Where are you?" And the kicker, "Boss is in his office." He has no idea. I realized I was boss, as Mia's actual boss is a woman. Mia came out of the shower and noticed me looking worse than the day before. "You should go stay with your parents," she suggested. I dismissed the idea, needing time to gather more evidence. Once she left for work, I called my dad and got the lawyer's name and number. The lawyer told me that while the captions I had taken from their chat were suspicious, they weren't concrete evidence since Max's real name wasn't mentioned. He explained that even if I photographed them at the mall, Mia could claim they were just friends. Trespassing into the residential area where I had followed them could also land me in legal trouble. At work, I was like a zombie, racking my brain for ideas. Installing cameras at home crossed my mind, but Max didn't visit frequently, and Mia might notice them. Then it struck me. I needed to remove myself from the situation. I texted Mia, telling her I had tested positive for the flu and would be staying with my parents for a few days since I might need assistance. She seemed relieved and even said she'd miss me but would call me daily. When I got home, she had already packed a suitcase for me. She seemed almost too eager to see me go. Before leaving, I checked her phone again. There it was, "Boss will be out of the office. Want to come to my desk?" She had sent it shortly after I informed her I'd be staying with my parents. Perfect. She had taken the bait. That evening, there were no kisses, no hugs, and no shared dinner. She kept glancing at the clock, clearly waiting for me to leave. As I walked out the door, I said, "I'll miss you," expecting her to shut the door quickly, but she surprised me by walking me to my car. I realized why soon after. Max was likely already inside the building, probably in her car. It would have been too suspicious for her trainer to arrive so late. I drove off but circled back to the condo quietly. My dad and brother were already stationed outside, watching for Max. After about half an hour with no sign of him arriving, I pieced it together. He must have been there all along. I parked discreetly and entered the building as quietly as possible. Approaching my apartment, I heard music coming from the bedroom and unmistakable moaning. On the sofa near the bedroom door lay their clothes, both his and hers. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and swung the door open. There they were, Mia, the woman I had loved for over a decade, and Max, in the middle of the act. I captured a few solid seconds of their shocked faces before Mia screamed and scrambled to cover herself with the blanket. Max, completely naked, switched to aggression, striding toward me like he owned the place. "Why don't you take a walk, buddy?" he barked. I stayed calm and struck his throat with an open hand, a move I'd seen in a movie once. Max dropped to his knees, coughing and gasping for air. I shouted, "Get out of my house!" and grabbed his clothes, throwing them at him as he stumbled out the door. Just as he was leaving, my dad, brother, and the building's security guard, Mr. T, arrived. I told them, "I'll handle it from here," then slammed the door shut. Mia was still sitting on the bed, trembling and clutching the blanket around her. I stood by the door and said, "I've never hurt you, and I never will. Get dressed. I'll wait for you in the living room." While waiting, I forwarded the video I had taken to my lawyer. His response came quickly, "I'm sorry this happened to you, but you've hit the jackpot for evidence." A few minutes later, Mia walked into the living room. She couldn't meet my eyes. I began recording the conversation on my phone and asked, "Why?" She didn't respond. Was I really such a terrible husband to you? Tears rolled down her face, but still, no words. "Do you love him?" She shook her head, but nothing else came out. Frustrated, I slammed my hand on the table and shouted, "Say something, Mia, for God's sake." Her eyes widened in fear, and she started trembling again like a frightened animal. I had never raised my voice at her before. I took a deep breath, sat down, and spoke calmly. "My lawyer will contact you about the divorce. You'll need to find your own attorney." She finally spoke, her voice breaking. "We can fix this." I shook my head. "Fix what?" "Our marriage ended the moment you brought Max into the picture. You chose him over me." "It was a mistake," she cried. "No, it wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You chose this, and these are the consequences. What did you think would happen when I found out?" She fell silent again. I stood up and said, "Go to your sister's place and tell her the truth. If you don't, I'll show her the video." Without another word, she walked back to the bedroom and began packing. I followed her, watching as she carefully folded her clothes and placed them in her suitcase. Her graceful movements and little habits, the things I had loved about her for years, hit me hard. For days, I had been trying to convince myself that the woman I had shared my life with was gone, but seeing her now shattered that illusion. Unable to bear it, I retreated to the guest room and broke down, crying uncontrollably. I heard the front door close a while later. She had taken the clothes left on the sofa and even made the bed where I had caught them. That small act, making the bed, made me collapse onto the floor in despair. Later that night, I called my dad. He told me that Max had initially wanted to press charges for the throat strike, but the condo's security guard, Mr. T, reminded him he hadn't signed in. This meant Max was trespassing, and the condo could sue him. Max backed off and left. My ever-curious brother had apparently been eavesdropping at my door, and my dad had to drag him away by the ear. I was physically and emotionally drained. I hadn't slept properly for days, so I collapsed in the guest room and finally got some rest. The next morning, I woke to a flood of messages from Mia, apologizing and begging for a second chance. I didn't bother reading them all. I just blocked her. Later, my sister-in-law, Emma, called me. Apparently, Mia hadn't told her what happened, only that we were fighting. I couldn't bring myself to explain. I was grateful my father-in-law wasn't alive to witness Mia's actions. She was his youngest and his favorite. As for my mother-in-law, she's battling dementia and wouldn't understand. That was all a week ago. Next week, Mia will be served with divorce papers. Update. Hello, everyone. I'm back with an update that I think you'll find satisfying. First, I want to express my gratitude to everyone who reached out to offer advice, congratulations, or simply to show they cared. I've read before how supportive these communities can be, but experiencing it firsthand has been overwhelming in the best way. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Second, English isn't my first language, so I realized there were mistakes in my original post. Misused prepositions, awkward phrasing, and so on. For example, I mistakenly said Mia was doing sit-ups, but she was actually doing squats. Third, for those who think my story is fake, you're entitled to your opinion. My hope is that sharing my experience might help someone else in the future, just as others' stories have helped me. Fourth, regarding how I struck Max, it wasn't a fancy martial arts move. It was just a quick chop to the throat, something I'd seen in a movie once. Honestly, it was pure luck that I reacted before he did. I won't deny it felt incredibly satisfying to see him on the floor gasping for air. Lastly, some of you uncovered an old post I made on another forum about trying to have kids. It never got approved because I misunderstood the rules, but I'll summarize. Mia and I had been trying to conceive for 10 years. After 8 years, we saved enough money for 3 rounds of IVF at the best clinic in the country. All 3 attempts failed. During the 3rd round, Mia began her affair with Max. This was also when the clinic tested my blood and informed me of my health risks, which led to our fitness journey. Ironically, I owe the clinic for setting me on a healthier path. Someone suggested Mia may have sabotaged the final IVF attempt, fearing the child might be Max's, but that's impossible. Mia cannot conceive naturally. The embryos were created and implanted directly in her womb. I don't believe Max influenced her decision to stop trying for kids. After the 3rd failure, she told me, "I don't want children anymore," and I accepted it. Looking back, I can see how broken our relationship had already become. It's been 12 days since D-Day. What have I been doing since then? D-Day +1, Friday. I had a long talk with Mr. T, the condo's security guard. He admitted he faked the shoulder pain to warn me about Max. He also mentioned that a nosy neighbor witnessed me kicking Max out of my apartment, completely naked. I guess the whole building will know my story within the week. Later, my brother came over to help me change the locks on my door. Once he left, the emptiness hit me hard, and I cried a lot. I called my workplace and requested a day off. That evening, I spoke to my lawyer, who informed me he had started drafting the divorce papers. Since we now have solid evidence, it'll proceed as a divorce by mutual consent, which is quicker and less messy than an uncaused divorce. He also advised me not to share the video with anyone. Jane will officially be served in 2 weeks. My sister-in-law, Emma, called to check on me, but I told her to ask Mia for the details. D-Day +2, Saturday. Emma showed up at my place, and after some hesitation, I showed her the video. She was stunned. I drove her back to her home, where I noticed Mia's car parked outside. When I returned, the sadness hit me again, and I cried myself to sleep. D-Day +3, Sunday. I visited my parents. My mom cried with me. She had really loved Mia. My dad, on the other hand, had a more practical conversation about my finances, properties, and next steps. When I got back home, Mr. T mentioned that both Mia and Max had shown up at different times. It seems they might not even be in contact with each other right now. Mia came in the morning, parked her car, and noticed mine wasn't there. She tried to use her key, but it no longer worked. She then asked Mr. T if he knew where I was. He didn't, but he handed her my lawyer's card, as I'd instructed him. She kept it and left. Max came in the afternoon, first asking to see Mia. Mr. T made a point of emphasizing, "Mrs. Mia doesn't live here anymore." Then Max asked about me, and Mr. T told him, "Mr. Alex is away, and I have no idea when he'll return." Max left soon after. Part of me wanted to ask Mr. T about Mia, if she seemed sad, if she looked healthy, if she asked about me. But then I remembered what I'd walked in on, thanked him, and said goodnight. When I got inside, I cried again. D-Day +4, Monday. I forced myself to hit the gym, taking advice from many of you champions. I found a new gym near my job and had a good session. It actually felt great. Afterward, I returned to work. When I got home, I didn't cry this time and started taking down all the pictures of Mia from the house. D-Day +5, Tuesday. I met with my lawyer to go over my assets. Thankfully, my dad had made sure Mia signed a prenuptial agreement before we got married. This means she can't claim anything I owned before our marriage, including the house. Everything acquired after the wedding will be divided 50-50ths, but since adultery is grounds for compensation, I can waive alimony. The idea of fighting over every item in the house seemed pointless. I just want to move on and start fresh. When I left for the gym, I overheard 2 neighbors whispering. As soon as I turned to look, they acted like they hadn't been talking about me, greeted me awkwardly, and walked away. I expected this to happen and just brushed it off. D-Day +6, Wednesday. I stayed off most social media except Reddit, where I found solace reading stories from others who had gone through similar experiences. It helped a lot, and I felt less alone. For the first time in days, I felt a sense of comfort and strength. D-Day +7, Thursday. I began writing and shared my story here. After the gym and work, I was amazed at the overwhelming response my post received. I spent hours answering comments and felt a strange sense of healing through it all. D-Day +8, Friday. I continued reading comments and responding. Some of the advice I received stood out. One person suggested reporting Max to my old gym, and another said I should consider selling my home because it's too tainted by the memories of what happened. Both ideas resonated with me. Before heading to the gym, I started reaching out to real estate agents to explore selling or renting out my house. The truth is, I can't stand living there anymore. I haven't set foot in the master bedroom since D-Day and have been sleeping in the spare room. The house feels like a constant reminder of betrayal, and I don't want to live like this. D-Day +9, Saturday. To avoid running into Mia, I decided to spend the entire day out of the house. Sure enough, she came by but didn't find me. She then visited my parents and my brother. Both of them texted me, "Mia came." I simply replied, "Thanks, but I don't want to talk about her yet." D-Day +10, Sunday. I spent the day with my parents. We visited a small town 2 hours away and had an amazing time. It felt good to be distracted and surrounded by family. I'm not sure if Mia showed up at the condo while I was away, and honestly, I didn't ask. During the trip, my dad suggested that instead of selling my house, I should rent it out. It made sense, so I agreed. When I returned home, Mr. T informed me that Max had shown up again that afternoon, alone, just like before. He asked for me, but Mr. T told him I was still away. Without saying anything, Max left. D-Day +11, Monday. That morning, I decided to visit my old gym. I wasn't sure if I'd run into Max, as he used to work afternoons. But given his afternoon escapades with Mia, I assumed his schedule might have changed. He wasn't there. I asked to speak with the gym owner, Frank. While waiting, I bumped into an old janitor I used to chat with. He asked me to say hi to Miss Mia. I smiled politely, realizing my new normal would involve explaining to everyone that we'd split up. Frank finally met with me, and I asked about Max. He explained that Monday was Max's day off, and his schedule had shifted. He now worked mornings from Tuesday to Sunday. I then told Frank why I was there. He listened attentively as I explained the situation and showed him the video. Frank stayed silent for a moment, thinking, then said, "You're not going to like this." My heart sank. "What now?" I asked. Frank called over another coach, Harry, a burly guy with a thick beard and a friend of Max's. Frank asked Harry to tell me about Max's girlfriend. Brace yourself for this bombshell. Harry revealed that Max was completely smitten with Mia and even confessed that Max had been planning to baby trap her to force a marriage. Frank corroborated the story, adding that Max had received numerous complaints from female members in the past, but his behavior had improved significantly in recent months, likely because of Mia. Hearing this, I felt something welling up inside me, starting in my chest and climbing to my throat. Then it exploded. I laughed. Not just any laugh, but a full-blown, Joker-style cackle. I laughed so hard I teared up. Frank and Harry just stared, utterly baffled. Between gasps, I thought, "Oh, sweet karma, thank you." When I finally calmed down, Harry asked, "What's so funny?" Frank explained, "This is Max's girlfriend's husband." Harry's face twisted in shock. "Oh man, that's bad. That's really messed up," he muttered before excusing himself. Frank and I then discussed Max's fate at the gym. Frank explained that he'd have to report the situation to the Trainers Association, not the real name. Since Mia was a gym member, the gym could face legal repercussions if they ignored the issue. Frank confirmed Max would almost certainly be fired. As for his license, I'd need to provide a formal legal document stating that Max was the reason for my divorce, including the case number and the video. My lawyer would handle submitting this to the association. Once the association receives the evidence, Max will lose his license, though he could apply for a new one through a different organization. However, this process would take months. I asked if Max could appeal, but Frank assured me it would be a waste of time. The association has a zero-tolerance policy for misconduct, and Max doesn't have the resources to hire a proper defense. Then something clicked in my mind. Max and Mia had been meeting at a specific residential area. I had assumed Max was wealthy, given the neighborhood. Curious, I mentioned it to Frank and showed him the location on my phone. His expression changed instantly. "You followed them to this place?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied, "on D-Day -1. Frank's face darkened. "That's my late father's house," he said angrily. After his father passed away, Frank inherited the property and used it to store old or broken gym equipment. He had occasionally lent Max the key to drop off items, but had never given him permission to stay there. It now seemed clear that Max had made a copy of the key and might be living there illegally. Frank promised to investigate further, noting that the house was equipped with multiple security cameras. It would be easy to confirm whether Max had been staying there without permission. As I was leaving the gym, I heard someone call out, Mr. Alex, wait." It was Harry. He jogged up to me, looking a little nervous. "I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about everything that's happening. Max never told me who his girlfriend was. He only mentioned meeting her at that mall." I nodded and thanked him, taking a step toward the exit. Before I could leave, he blurted out, "Can you tell me what happened?" I stopped and replied curtly, "Pretty much what you already heard. He was screwing my wife, and now I'm divorcing her." I took another step, and Harry continued, "What's going to happen to Max?" I sighed. "That depends on Frank and the Trainers Association." Just as I was about to leave, he asked, "But how are you handling it?" Something felt off. I looked at Harry, his nervousness suddenly clicking in my mind. Baldy had shown up at my house twice, and now Harry was acting like he wanted to stall me. I stared at him and asked, "You called Max, didn't you? He's on his way here, and you're just buying time. Am I wrong?" Harry's guilty expression gave it away. "Please, Mr. Alex, just talk to him. He's really desperate. He was crying yesterday. Jane, your wife, won't return his calls." I raised an eyebrow. "And why should I care if he's rotting in hell?" Harry tried to reassure me. "I'll stay here with you, so you don't need to be scared." That made me laugh. Scared? Of that weakling? Did he forget to mention that I kicked him out of my house naked? Harry looked doubtful, so I shrugged. "Fine, let's see what this idiot wants." We walked back to the reception area where there were plenty of cameras. I didn't think Max was stupid enough to attack me in public, but you never know. Besides, I was curious about what he could possibly want. Max came running in about 10 minutes later. When he saw me sitting there, he immediately extended his hand for a handshake. I crossed my arms and let his hand hang awkwardly in the air. "What the hell do you want?" I asked, staring him down. He sat across from me, looking sheepish. "Listen, buddy." "Stop right there." I cut him off. "We're not buddies. Mr. S, the janitor, is my buddy. You're nothing." Max shifted uncomfortably. "Okay, my bad. I just want to say I'm sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you, and I really care about Mia." I smirked. "Well, that's 3 lies in 1 sentence. You're not sorry, you did mean to destroy my life, and you only care about yourself." His demeanor changed from apologetic to irritated. "Okay, whatever, man. Just tell me where Mia is." I leaned back in my chair and said casually, "The last time I saw her was when I kicked her cheating ass out of my house, right after I kicked you out naked." Harry was clearly listening, and Max's face turned beet red. "That was a cheap shot. I should sue you." I leaned forward, keeping my tone icy. "As far as I know, you entered my home illegally. For all I know, you could have been assaulting my wife. I've got video evidence of you running out of my house, and guess what? You didn't sign in at the condo. Good luck with that lawsuit." Max's tone changed again. Okay, I'm sorry. Just tell me what you want. Please, let Mia know I need to talk to her." At that moment, Frank came rushing over, probably alerted by the cameras. "Everything okay here?" he asked. "Everything's fine, Frank," I said, standing up. "I was just telling this clown exactly what I want." I leaned in close to Max, speaking low but firm. "What I want is for you to face the consequences of your actions. I want you to lose everything you've worked for, just like you destroyed my life. You want kids? Guess what? You won't have them. Not now, not ever." Max's confusion was obvious. "What's that supposed to mean?" Before he could finish, Frank interrupted. "Max, we need to talk in my office. Now." Harry grabbed Max's arm and muttered, "Dude, you're in deep shit," as he led him away. I finally walked out, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. D-Day plus 12, Tuesday. I feel ready to face Mia now. After all this, I'm still grinning as I type this. "So, how have you been?"